Welcome, fellow history fans, for this new part of 5,000 Years of War. We continue our march through time and conflicts after the terrible uprising of the Middle East against Sennacherib, the Emperor of Assyria. And our guy, the following year in 700 BC, is still busy. He tames another rebellion of Marduk Apla-iddina II in Babylonia, revolt backed by Elam, kingdom of nowadays southwestern Iran. The Chaldean king, Marduk Apla-iddina, disappears from history. He must have received a serious whacking on his head. The incapable Syrian governor of Babylonia, Bel-ibni, is replaced by Sennacherib's son, Assur-nadin-shumi. Yes, for newcomers, there are lots of syllables in these ancient names. Maybe Elam is struck by the Assyrians too. The year following, talking about Elam, Kalutush-Inshushinak II, you'll get used to it, succeeds to his brother Shutruk-Nahunti II, whom he assassinated. And the new king Kalutush-Inshushinak finds nothing better than attacking Babylonia right away. He takes Sippar, somewhere between here and 693 BC, and threatens Babylon itself. Assur-nadin-shumi of Babylon will of course call his father Sennacherib for help. In the meantime, in 696 BC, after repeated raids, the Cimmerian nomad barbarians of King Figarash sack Gordian, capital of Phrygia, despite its strong defenses. The Phrygian king Midas III dies then or soon after. Candole of Lydia, rising neighbor power southwest of Phrygia, takes advantage of this by annexing some Phrygian lands while kicking the ferocious Cimmerian riders out. 694 BC, Sennacherib is apparently the first Assyrian emperor to develop a proper war fleet, of which you can see a bizarre galley with its ram and shields strapped to the gunwale to protect the crew. This bireme, with two banks of rowers, seems way too high for any stability though. With this fleet, Sennacherib beats Chaldeans on the lower Tigris and Euphrates River in these environs, so this is probably part of the general offensive he's currently launching against the Elamites. His army, as usual, includes war chariots, cavalrymen, both archers and lancers, and infantrymen. The lancers now don cuirasses and greaves in addition to the helmet and carry a sword as a secondary weapon. As for his warships, they are mostly built by Syrians and crewed by Phoenicians. In 693, despite heavy losses, Sennacherib defeats the Elamites, who tried to counterattack with the Chaldeans at the Battle of the Diyala River over here. But while this time, his firstborn Assur-nadin-shumi is overthrown from the Babylonian throne in another uprising. Never a moment's rest. The insurgents deliver their valuable hostage to Kalutush-Inshushinak II of Elam, who promptly puts him to death. In Babylonia, the Chaldean Nergal-Ussazib is on the throne, but for a short time, as we will see. As for Kalutush-Inshushinak II, it is not even Sennacherib who's his downfall. He's assassinated, replaced by Kutir-Nahunti IV. In September, Sennacherib chooses to focus on Babylonia and of course dethrones Nergal-Ussazib, the decisive battle possibly occurring near Nippur, south of Babylon. Another Chaldean, Musezib-Marduk, is put in place by the Assyrian emperor, but this foreign authority is still contested by some Babylonians. We'll note to end this year that some additional operations are maybe carried out in Elam, including an occupation of Madaktu, possible capital of the time. And in 691 BC, all this leads to a big battle between Sennacherib's army and that of his assembled enemies in Mesopotamia. Babylonians, Elamites, Arameans, and Chaldeans. The clash takes place at Halule on the shores of the Tigris, not far from nowadays Baghdad. Under the sole command of Humban-Umena III of Elam, we find warriors of Anshan, Elipi, Farsua, and more, all peoples that are more and more slowly singularizing themselves from old Elam. The great battle is apparently fought on Sennacherib, his enemy standing between his army and the drinkable waters of the Tigris River. The battle is fierce and bloody, and of course, the Assyrian claims himself victorious. Maybe it is so. As the Elamite commander-in-chief is killed, the Chaldeans put to flight, maybe some of them attacked by surprise in their camp. But this is not the end of this war yet. Here is a short excerpt of the stele erected to the glory of Sennacherib after this battle. My swift thoroughbreds, held by their harness, blooded in their blood like through a river. The wheels of my war chariots were spattered with blood and gore. I filled the plain with the corpses of their warriors like grass. The following year, a small parenthesis, in Egypt, where Taharqa, brother of Shabbataka, becomes pharaoh after him and must battle to keep all cities under his control, notably Sais, and to maintain his army in case of Assyrian aggression. And in 689, the Babylonians and Chaldeans are still united against the Assyrian Empire. But Sennacherib falls upon them and triumphs this year or the next, besieging and flooding Babylon, deporting the part of its population that is not killed on the spot. Sennacherib retakes the title of king of Babylonia, and maybe he had the intent to attack Egypt shortly after, but his troops are struck by a plague, unless this project was of some time before. Note that this horrible depiction of victorious Assyrian soldiers right here is from a different year, that of the siege of Alamu. Let's move on to 688 and Greece. There, in Peloponnese, west of well-known Corinth, over here, the minor city of Sicyon apparently attacks Hyperesia in Achaia. The Hyperesians would have defended themselves somehow by attaching torches to the horns of goats. Well, they probably did something else too, like actual fighting, you know? The Sicyonians retreat, and the Hyperesians rename their city Aegera in honor of the goats. Well, that was a story for sure. In 685 now, Gyges is king of Lydia after assassinating Candole, his predecessor. Gyges, reigning from Sardis, expands his kingdom, may be held by the Milesians of Miletus, on the western coast of Anatolia. In a few years, he'll try to take Smyrna and Miletus, but will fail, defeated on the banks of the Hermione, the Gedis River today, near Izmir. He succeeds, however, in taking Magnesia and Colophon, between Smyrna and Miletus. He'll really become a power to be reckoned with in Caria and Ionia. Until the start of the next century, the Lydians will also try to expand in southern Anatolia, but will be repulsed by the Pisidians. Alright, also this year, Humban Haltash I of Elam tries to retake Babylonia from the Assyrians, but is repulsed by the Babylonians themselves. The old alliance between Babylonia and Elam is no more. 682. The Second Messenian War, revolt of the Helots against their Lacedaemonian masters, begins. It is only one of the dates proposed for what's also called the War of Tyrtus, after a Spartan poet. The Helots are held by the Arcadians of Aristocrates II of Orchomenes, Argives of Argos, and the inhabitants of Pisa in the Elide. Sparta is on the back foot to begin with, but that surely doesn't refrain its poet Tyrtus from writing these lines. Close in, strike with a long spear or a sword in close combat, and kill a man. Advance toe to toe, shield against shield, clash blade on blade, helmet against helmet, torso to torso. Moving on to 681 and the Assyrian Empire, where poor or not, Sennacherib is assassinated at Nineveh, his strongly fortified and 100,000 souls capital, by one of his sons, Arad Mulissu, during an uprising. This short civil war, 6 weeks long it seems, ends with another of his sons, Assarhaddon, on the throne of the empire and with the crown of Babylonia, where he will kindly have Babylon rebuilt. Thank you, Assarhaddon. Our man will ally with the Medes of the east against the Elamites. The Medes had been a nuisance for his father and for the nearby Manians and Persians too. As for the Persians, here could be the moment when Achaemenes, first of the famous Achaemenid dynasty, gets to the top among them, if he really existed. Master of Parsumiash, he would also have attacked Assarhaddon's father once, and would have conquered Anshan and the Fars region, southward too. The following year, 680 BC, the city of Sidon on the Phoenician coastline under his king Abdi-Milkuti again starts a rebellion against Assyria. The Phoenician city allies with Sanduari, Anatolian king of the cities of Sisu and Kundu, somewhere in the southeast of this vast region. Assarhaddon, Assyrian emperor, promptly intervenes, besieging Sidon. This will last for 3 years. Also, this year 680, an Elamite governor in southern Babylonia, would that be the Sea Land, Nabu-zer-Kitilisir, tries to take Ur in defiance of the Assyrian rule. He fails and, fearing the return wrath, flees in Elam, where he'll soon die, possibly by Elamite authorities, to avoid any Assyrian hostility. We should add that this is indeed not the moment to wage a war for Elam, as new king Humban Haltash II, in the midst of a civil war, has to accept a co-reign with Shilak Inshushinak II. Lastly, for this year, we'll just mention the end of Abd Melkart of Tyre's reign, Phoenician coast again. He warred against the Israelites, destroying their fleet at some point. I personally wonder if Abdi-Milkuti of Sidon and Abd Melkart of Tyre, neighbors, could have been the same person. 677. In these hard-to-follow ancient sources, Assyrian Emperor Assarhaddon must cancel an Egyptian invasion that he was apparently starting to tame a revolt in future Palestine, Sidon being also submitted after a 3-year-long siege. Assarhaddon continues way up north against Sisu and Kundu, doing what he did at Sidon, beheading the king. Tyre, of King Baal I, refusing to lend the ships to the Assyrian, resists him though, and it is unclear if it is him who pillages Byblos of King Ormelek I around here too. Other sources say that Tyre is submitted and that Baal I then is put into power, way more cooperative than his predecessor afterward. In 676, the following year, clearly needing some vacation, Assarhaddon travels east to the mountains of Zagros, reaching the kingdom of Patusharu, probably Mede. Cimmerians and Scythians, coming from the steppes over here and here, however, force him to withdraw. 2 years later, the Mede kings Upis of Partaca, Zanasama of Partuka, and Ramateya of Uruk-Zabara will ask for Assyrian assistance without us knowing the result, unfortunately. 675 BC. Sippar in Babylonia is attacked by Humban Haltash II of Elam. It is pillage and the Elamite returns home, maybe after suffering a setback at some point. He will die in Elam before 674 in foggy circumstances. His co-king, Shilhak Inshushinak II, could have had him assassinated in a short episode of civil war, but there is no certainty. In any event, it is Urtaki that replaces his late brother, to immediately have Shila King Shushinak II sent into exile. What a turn of event! If that's what really happened, of course, historians are still working on it. What's for sure is that Urtaki will first seek to appease relations with Syria, even sending back some booty made in Sipar. In 674 now, Palestine revolts, or Ascalon more specifically on the coastline, against Assyria. The uprising is supported by Taharqa, Black Pharaoh of the 25th dynasty of Egypt, and Assyrian soldiers have to pull back for now. You see victorious Egyptian soldiers of the time on a relief of the temple of Amun at Jebel Barkal. 673 BC. Rusa II, prosperous sovereign of Urartu since around 680, builder of fortresses like Ayanissen Teshebani, and of a new capital, Rushalini, Tropakale, near the Lake of Van, here repulses an attack of Asarhaddon the Assyrian. He also regularly has to deal with Cimmerians and Scythians, mounted archers also fielding some armored warriors, protected man and horse alike, with scale armor probably taken after the Assyrians. Yerevan is sacked at least once by them at some point. Concerning actual battle tactics, Scythians are adept of faked retreats to lure their enemies into traps, and their armored noble lancers, cataphracti before the time, will now ever be ready for devastating wedge charges whenever an opportunity will arise in the heat of battle. All in all, Scythians use bows and straight Akinake swords, axes and javelins, maces and lances, but we should also note that they field some infantrymen, notably slingers. Supply chariots accompany them too, and can be used as mobile defenses in case of difficulty. The Scythian king of this time, Bartetua, will be an ally of Asarhaddon of Assyria, although some of his people will also serve the Urartians as mercenaries. To come back to Rusa II of Urartu, he'll reign until 640 or so, and he'll have appeased relations with the Assyrians. Now, I bet you'll take what you can about Rome. The young city is at the end of its second king's reign, Numa Pompilius, of Sabine origins, and who could have avoided any kind of serious conflict with the Romans' neighbors. It is now Tullus Hostilius that gets to the throne. He would have been at the head of the first real, so to speak, Roman army, composed of javeliners, swordsmen, and slingers. It's already called Legio, and its curias, where warriors of the different tribes of the city were dispatched, were 100 infantrymen and 10 cavalrymen strong each. Under Hostilius, the Romans fought the Albines, southeast, their leader Clulius having provoked them. Allied with Sabines, maybe motivated by the potential booty, the legionaries, according to the legend, would have limited the combat to champion duels to avoid massive casualties that would have exposed Rome to Etruscan attacks from the north. In the duels, the Roman side would have won, bringing peace back with Alba. A few years later, the Sabines defected. Fidenae, one of their cities, pushed Alba to defy Rome again, and Tullus Hostilius simply razed Alba to the ground, deporting the inhabitants to force them to integrate Rome. Fidenae could have taken more time to submit again, but in any case, Rome ended on top of the Latin League. Alright, we've done quite a lot today. We'll end on the taking of Tyre in Phoenicia and Memphis, capital of Egypt, by the Assyrians. Emperor Asarhaddon finally deciding to punish Black Pharaoh Taharqa's support to Phoenicia and Judah some years ago. Taharqa flees all the way down to Thebes, and Asarhaddon will die 2 years later as new unrest will arise in the Delta region. One of his sons, Ashurbanipal, will take the imperial throne, and another, Shamash Shumukin, that of Babylon. That's it, friends. We'll finally meet with the Greek phalanx in the next episode, so get quickly ready for that. See you next week, friends.